Hi, and welcome to this very first episode of the Zero Trust Zone, the podcast where we explore the wonderful world of cybersecurity, one trust boundary at a time. I'm your host, Michael Van Horenbeeck. I've been a longtime Microsoft MVP. I'm a cybersecurity professional. And each episode, I sit together with leading voices from the tech world and unpack strategies, tools, and ideas that help shape the security of today and tomorrow. So, whether you're a seasoned security architect or you're just trying to stay ahead of the threat curve, this is your space for an honest conversation, practical insights, and a no BS approach to making zero trust real. So, today I'm joined by Rohit Gulati from Microsoft. Rohit and I have known each other for quite a while. And given the topic of today, decentralized identities, I couldn't think of anyone better than Rohit to join me. So, Rohit, thanks for joining. How are you?
I'm good, Michael. Thank you for inviting me to this talk. It's a pleasure to be a part of your podcast, and I'm here to share my experiences.
Mhm.
I've been in this industry for 21 plus years. I've seen various identity trends. And in my current role at Microsoft, where I function as a principal product manager, I look at supporting customers and partners on products within Entra, especially features like on verified ID or external ID. And
Mhm.
I'm passionate about this topic. So thank you for inviting me.
Right, it's my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And obviously, because your day to day work is around, as you mentioned, decentralized identities. I think we'll get some really good insights. So before we dive into the conversation about the current and the future of decentralized identities in the market and in general, let's maybe explain a little bit what decentralized identities are. You want to have a go at it?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Cool.
So, see, if you look at the identity models, each one of us are now becoming privacy aware. Like if some notification comes to us on a social channel, we are very conscious what we are sharing with the application. So, what decentralized identity brings in is that model where you own your own identity and data instead of centralized authorities. You control your data. You can share your attestations or attributes with the provider or the application, and you only share that is on the required set of attributes and not everything.
Mhm.
There are terms that you would see when we talk about decentralized identity. There are terms like verifiable credentials, self sovereign identity. But I would suggest to look at it as a simple pattern where you own your own identity. You look at privacy by design model. You share whatever is required and not overshare information, and you build a platform or solution that is privacy first by design. And in this world, when I use the term decentralized, it also means that you're not bound to a centralized provider. What if that provider is down?
Mhm.
Should I still be allowed to access my applications? So decentralized patterns allow you such kind of models where you could share your application. You're not dependent on a centralized provider, and you can still follow that privacy by design model. We also see a lot of trends right now on
Mhm.
regulations and privacy. Decentralized identity patterns support such models where you can comply with evolving privacy design patterns.
Okay, that makes sense. So I heard you say decentralized a couple of times. Obviously, decentralized identities is the tenant there. Do you feel that it kind of got a jump start because of blockchain? Because one of the things that I notice when talking to people is they think that blockchain is always part of decentralized identities, but it doesn't have to be, does it?
It doesn't need to be part of the architecture. It is an option an implementer or a provider can choose.
Hmm.
Now, what does blockchain bring into the mix? I said at my first response that when you look at decentralized models, you are looking at a decentralized authority or a trust system.
Hmm.
And when you look at such trust systems, blockchain as one pattern comes to our mind, but there are patterns like um, web servers could be uh, decentralized as well, because you back them up with uh, CDNs or content delivery networks, so they are globally and resilient, so they are available all the time. And then you could have other patterns where you keep the trust system globally available through various models. So blockchain is not a must. It could be part of the structure and pattern. And even and if I have to double click on that blockchain, that whole model could
Mhm.
also go into patterns like permissioned or permissionless. So it depends upon what use case you have, what scenarios you are looking at. I would say that look at the decentralized patterns with trust system in mind, and if the trust system is decentralized, you are good with using that as a pattern.
Okay, cool. So, you're making my segue so easy. Trust system, zero trust, right? So why are we seeing, especially in the past couple of months, but moving forward, a lot more interested in decentralized systems? Let me, because quite frankly, it isn't new, right? It's been around for a while, but we're only now seeing that traction. At least I am. Not sure how you feel about it, or whether you have an idea about why that is.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a pattern that product companies, implementers have been talking about for some years, but it has recently gained traction because of what we see now with uh, data breaches, privacy scandals, deepfake AI attacks. Governments are also trying to make sure they can add stricter regulations. We know all about GDPR, but there are now regional and global regulations around privacy and how a user can control their personal data. Another thing that actually triggered this trend was the remote work pattern. Post COVID,
Okay.
uh, many services became online. When you now look at hiring someone, um, hybrid slash remote option is part of the job description. Like, you see that as a common trend, and when you are trying to offer such remote work and hybrid patterns, you need to make sure the services are online. So how do you make sure these online services are secured and they're not dependent on a central system? We also see this pattern gaining traction because of need of portable identities, because there's so many interfaces where a user is interacting and sharing their data. Just imagine, if I am doing an online purchase with five different retail stores, and each of the store or the retail application has its own loyalty account. Just imagine the kind of credentials that the user has to maintain, and they need to remember those passwords or strong keys or passkeys. So there's a need around portable identity also now, where I could have a single or maybe a portable secure store which
Hmm.
has information about me, and I can use that information to get access to system. That could be getting into an application or doing a secure access to an application, or interacting with a digital channel where I am supposed to get a service based on the attribute I provide. Like, if I have to go to a liquor store to buy liquor, the only thing they care about if I am 25 years and above. Why should I give them my whole identity set? So there is this need as well that is uh, pushing scenarios with decentralized patterns.
Hmm. So it's interesting because in the whole explanation, I heard both two really important elements of identity systems come back into the mix. It's the authorization and it's the authentication, or the other way around, right? Where you can actually leverage both at the same time. Would you feel that from a decentralized identity that one or the other is a better fit, or is it really decentralized identities at some point may actually become the de facto standard for both authenticating people, or identities, I would say, and the authorization that comes after.
Yeah. So at this phase of
Hmm.
our digital models and transformation, I see these patterns fitting into specific scenarios.
Okay.
And this is, I've been in this space for 6+ years. I see the market is evolving. Authorization patterns are easy to follow and implement. Like the example I quoted,
Hmm.
you for that application, it only was looking for my age and if I am 25 years and above. So I can use this pattern where a verifiable credential can prove that I'm 25 and above for authorization, and I can then get access to that system, and maybe purchase liquor from that online store. We see these patterns evolve. When you look at decentralized identity, I've been also using these terms like the technical levers for it are identifiers and verifiable credentials.
Hmm.
So authorization will be an easy pattern for companies and applications to implement. That's where we see things moving first,
Hmm.
and then things will evolve obviously in future where you could use such patterns for sign-in and authentication as well. Maybe you may choose these patterns for maybe digital applications, low impact applications, but in most cases you would want to add a second factor or a multi-factor to it when it comes to authentication too. So that's where you will see product companies innovating, bringing it together with strong authentication models
Hmm.
like passkeys, face biometric, and so on. So authorization now, maybe authentication and authorization together in future.
Okay. All right. Cool. So, we've kind of set the scene, decentralized identities, but obviously, you work for Microsoft, and Microsoft is jumping on, or has been in that space for a while. We're talking Microsoft Verified ID. Could you maybe share with the audience a little bit? What is Microsoft's decentralized identity solution, and then kind of how does it work? What are the components? What's Microsoft vision on DIDs?
Sure, sure. Yeah, the first thing I would say, uh, in our talk so far, we have been using the term decentralized identity. To our listeners, I would always say that use this term decentralized identity as a term so that you can follow the pattern. When you look at the fundamental elements of it, we talk about components like decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials, and these are standards from bodies and communities like W3C, and and what Microsoft has built a managed verifiable credential service. So coming back to those technical elements, I said we have built a verifiable credentialed managed service
Hmm.
coming from Microsoft Entra as a platform. It is based on open standards, so the verifiable credential data model and the W3C DID identifier spec is what we follow, along with other specifications that come along the way, like how do you manage issuance of such credentials, verification of such credentials, how do you look at transport of such credential, key management of such credentials. So we follow a set of open standards. And I spoke about various layers in this pattern. You can imagine for each of the layer, like issuance, verifications, key management, transport, there are a bunch of protocols and standards linked to it.
Hmm.
So when we thought about a managed service, we thought about how we can make it easy for customers to use this as a pattern so that they can build such digital services where they can issue credentials, verify credentials, and also make sure they can add such patterns in their existing app. So in a nutshell, it's a managed verifiable credential service that allows application owners, developers, administrator to issue and verify
Hmm.
credentials. It's a service that is managed and offered through an API model. So simple APIs
Hmm.
that one can connect to for issue and verify. So one API call to issue, one API call to verify, and we offer a bunch of APIs for admin experiences as well. I'm sure our listeners would enjoy using Entra Admin Center and Azure Portal. But if you are like a developer, or if you have built a solution and you have your own control panel, and you want to build admin experiences in your control panel, you can always use the admin API to define how my credential should look like, what goes into my credential, and define the attestation pattern. So it offers a set of APIs
Hmm.
for issue verify. It offers an APIs for admin function, network function, discovery functions, and you can easily bring this to life in your existing apps or your new apps. The promise here is, we will follow the same open standard. It's a stateless service, so that we can offer that privacy preserving model as well.
Mhm.
And we offer various platform based attestations, so you could connect your system to OpenID Connect flows, non-OpenID Connect flows. You could bring in self-attested data from a user, like, do you like spicy food? Can you speak English? So maybe these kind of patterns is something you may want to add in your flows. So,
Uh-huh.
so the platform offers such capabilities, and then it can integrate it to your line of business app, or the Microsoft app. So it is a platform agnostic model
Mhm.
and stateless model built on APIs.
Okay, so I I see lots of interesting stuff. Like there were some use cases in there, and personally, when I look at verified ID, then what I personally like is the fact that it makes it certain elements simple, like uh, decentralized identities or verifiable credentials can be quite complex, especially if you haven't been in this space for a long time. Then
Mm,
there's all these terms that you have to start understanding. And I think one of the implementations, or one of the features that's built on top of the platform, FaceCheck, is
mm.
making the use of a verifiable credential and the real world use case a lot easier. Would you say that the ease of use of some elements, but making it then again part of a standard and privacy aware, one of the differentiators compared to some other platforms?
Uh, yeah. So if you look at the platform that we offer, we are compliant to the open standards, and the promise here is we are using a set of same protocols and data
Hmm.
models, so that we can be interoperable. But as you look at patterns of presentations and issuance, our customers have been asking us, like, how do I ensure that the person who is presenting the credential is the right person? Like the smartphone which is storing my credential, my partner could also have access to that smartphone through her face ID or the thumbprint biometric. So how do you make sure you can bring in a step up verification in the mix? That's where we started our journey of bringing face biometric check
Hmm.
using our face API, through Azure Cognitive Services, which is ISO spec compliant for personal attack detection. And that way we could make sure we can add and support high assurance workflows. You can look at a phase biometric response, and also connect it to your existing system. So you follow the same open
Hmm.
standard verifiable credential data model, but then on the Microsoft specific flow, we add the step check or a step up check in the fix, which obviously is a service that our platform offers. It is coming from Azure Cognitive Services,
Hmm.
part of Microsoft Authenticator stack, and this particular specific element is using the Microsoft Services component. And the idea here is, can we add a high assurance biometric flow at the time of presentation? We have seen implementers look at patterns like OTP or pin check. We
Hmm.
do support that too, but even for that OTP pin channel, there could be like a phish attempt where
Hmm.
my email could be hacked and the OTP could be picked up from that. So hence this face biometric as a model. And we are learning from our customers. We see this is gaining traction when it comes to use of such models to support high assurance workflows. And we will look at other patterns as well. We're trying
Hmm.
to make it more accessible. We are daily looking at how our customers are using this service, and looking at how we can improve this service as the face API from the cognitive services evolves with time.
So it almost seems to me that I see similarities with just um, I'm going to call it regular authentication, like where we had MFA, but MFA wasn't good enough because phishable, so we went out to phishing resistant to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Is that also what's happening here in the VC space or in the decentralized identity space, where we're adding that layer of reasonable assurance, because there's no 100% guarantee ever of
Yeah.
making sure that those credentials cannot be phished, as you mentioned, like a partner having access to a cell phone or to the wallet in which the credentials are stored.
Yeah, there's this effort, and you're right. In our centralized deployment, there's already a push of implementing MFA and phish-resistant MFAs. But when you look at verifiable credentials in general,
Hmm.
these are signed cryptographic tokens which are tamper-proof. So as a credential, it is tamper-proof. But when I look at phish resistance, I need to secure the channel, I need to secure the wallet binding. So how do we make sure these two elements are secured so that we can offer phish resistance pattern? Um, and as Microsoft, we are looking at how we can do that as a model. Face check is one such attempt, but it
Hmm.
doesn't meet the whole 9 yards of it. We are looking at how we can go about exploring other patterns as well. What we see today, um, face check with verified ID and government document based verifications can be a good enabler for customers for onboarding phish resistance credential. Like, so how do you know the person who is getting the passkey is the right Rohit?
Hmm.
So you could use verified ID plus face check patterns to ensure that it is the right Rohit that is getting onboarded to a strong authentication key or a pass key. So that's where our first step is. And then we will look at patterns where we can support the whole end to end story with this model.
Yep, kind of the Aussie versus auth story that we had before. Okay, so would you say that that's also where today, right, and the future is what it is, where verified ID kind of sits in the whole broader ecosystem, supporting existing use cases within Intra ID and then enhance them with that additional verification, and ultimately maybe ever get to the point where we replace maybe not, where we evolve into parts that the decentralized elements take over the authentication as well.
Yeah, so that's our effort right now
Hmm.
to bring this patterns of verification in use cases where we need additional verifications. Like if you look at a joiner mover lever pattern, I'm sure customers have looked at various services that are offered through Entra. But how do you make sure you secure the pre-hire scenario? That's where a user is interacting with you with his or her personal channel. So how do you secure that pattern? There is a gap today. So that's where this verification pattern is getting talked about and getting implemented. So onboarding is one pattern.
Hmm.
Then we see patterns, as I said, how do you make sure a user is uh, the right user is getting onboarded to a strong authentication pass key? So how do you bootstrap a user uh, with the right key? Their verifications are coming in. We're also seeing customers using verification with verified ID and face check for privilege role escalations. Like, hey, I'm gonna use this privilege role. Am I the right user for this process? So that's we have a case study as well in our public docs where a customer is using that in production.
Hmm.
And then uh, a high privileged or a high business impact application where you need to follow the verify explicitly principle. So, how do you know he or she is the right person who is accessing this finance dashboard? And is he or she the right person or the signing authority to do this check signing? So, you want to bring in those explicit verifications, you bring it to life with these pattern. And to map it to our Entra services, if you see verified ID today is available as a general available feature with access package integration, which is our capability and identity governance. As an access package feature, a user can do a self service request to a set of resources. So in the policy as an admin, I could say, hey, did you complete your training? Are you a UK citizen? And can I bring in face biometric check for these high assurance workflows? Because you're trying to access a finance dashboard, which is a high
Hmm.
business impact application. So verifying explicitly is part of that story. And that's where we see customers using it. It's already
Hmm.
part of our access package thing. And as I said, for privilege roles, which you can add through self-service via access packages, the Entra roles. There too, if a user is requesting an escalation for an Entra role, you could
Hmm.
bring in these verifications as a pattern.
Yeah, that's how we are using it internally at the collective, for instance, where certain access packages that give privileges within our own tenant or customer environments, they're protected additionally with a face check, just because we have very strict rules, and as everyone's working remotely, it is just wonderful that you can do that, because
Yeah.
otherwise, that explicit verification is an important element. Now, I just want to take maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to talk about that explicit verification, because as we work with lots of government customers as well, the 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 identity cards that we have today are rooted in a physical validation, right? You only get it when you present yourself to the authorities, and then they're like, "Yep, yep, this is Michael, and here's your card." And as of then, you have this explicit verification. And I heard you say in the use cases as well a couple of times where during that explicit verification for access to a sensitive document, you want to check whether someone is, let's say, a sovereign citizen of that country, or other elements, and that kind of brings it back to the issuer of that identity, which is typically that country. So do you see a big use case there as well, where that integration with the European identity systems is going to become more important, or is that still something that is going to, live separately? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so if you see, there are digital efforts going on by government organizations, and there are government digital initiatives as well, like the reference that you just mentioned, European Union Digital Identity Program, or EIDAS. There has been an architecture reference framework discussion going on since
Hmm.
February 2022, and it has been going through some revisions. But if you look at the meat of that pattern is talking about government issued verifiable credentials with elements like personal identifiers. So they're talking about type 1, type 2 credentials, and they're talking about use cases like when you try to access a government service, or you're trying to use services like medical insurance, your driving license, or you want to get access to your educational transcripts and training certificates. So there are efforts globally now that are
Hmm.
talking about credentials being issued by government authorities or by qualified attested issuers. These qualified attested issuers could be entities that can verify your document, entities that can do a digital signature on the issuance explicitly. But there are discussions about educational transcripts that could be coming from universities. So universities will become issuers as well for your transcripts. So the patterns are evolving. Um, I did mention one reference explicitly of a date, February 2022, but that architecture document has been going through a set of revisions, and I see a bunch of pilots happening across the Europe. And in global deployment models, there are initiatives happening in Australia, Canada, Americas, where digital credentials through verifiable credential patterns are being looked at for
Hmm.
specific use cases. So coming to that point, these patterns are emerging and evolving.
Hmm.
We also see today, when you look at customers, and let me just talk about commercial customers. When they hire someone, they do ask their new hire to present a government issued document, right? When I joined Microsoft many years ago, I was told to bring in a photocopy of my passport. And I did, as a good employee of the company, I brought that document and I handed it over to HR, and I still don't know what has happened to that photocopy. So there is a need where the person who is exchanging their data, they get involved, they
Hmm.
get to see what happens to their credential. Their passport was getting verified, so who is verifying my passport? Can I get that as a digital attestation? And why should I'm not carrying my passport all the time when application A or application B or application C is asking for my same such artifact. So can't I have this portable credential which is based on a government document? And there are
Hmm.
verification partners, not just government entities, but identity verification partners who have access to government databases, list, and they can also pull in threat signals for a passport or a document, and basis the verification they can issue a credential, a verifiable credential. So if you look at verified ID, we have done such integration with identity verification partners.
Hmm.
Some of it are familiar names, like when we are going through airport immigration channels, we see them listed at the gate for fast biometric verifications. So
Hmm.
same providers, you can bring them to life in your corporate scenarios as well, in collaboration scenarios with your business organizations.
Hmm.
And We have done such integrations through APIs. These partners offer APIs. We have production customers using this pattern.
Wow.
But what I would like to leave you with for this specific question,
Hmm.
um, uh, we have 11 suppliers, verification partners listed in our gallery, but it need not be just these 11. It could be any partner that you may use today.
Hmm.
If you are comfortable with the verification flow they offer and they have an API based model, they can complete their business logic. They can do their magic thing of verifying an individual. The outcome of that verification could be a verified ID based on verified ID APIs, which brings in this portability, reuse, and privacy based design in the mix.
So it seems like there's lots of capabilities in the platform with some built-in features and capabilities like face check, but it's more of a here's a box of Legos. You can basically, if you can dream it, you can build it, but you still have to do it. So that brings me to the next point, right? Looking at today, what can organizations do, or where should they start to actually build things? Like, obviously any resources that we share will be in links in the comments afterwards,
Mhm.
but are there any things that you're like, hey, if you haven't done anything with it, do these couple of things to get started, because it's definitely going somewhere in the future.
Sure. So if you look at Entra as a platform, Verified ID is one such product under Entra. We You can always switch on this service with Entra Verified ID free tenant as well. So that gets you started with the basic issuance and verification models. And you can do up to 50,000 transactions in a given month, part of the free SKU itself. So that will get you going. And if you look at verified ID, we offer a simple one-click deployment model too, with quick setup. As long as you have an M365 tenant, which is where you have this Entra free SKU, and you have verified a custom domain, you can just bring the service to life using one click. And it's the same experience when you choose quick and advanced. It's just that quick is for the M365 customers with custom domain. And then you can start using it in some basic use cases. As I said, bring it to life with access packages.
Hmm.
uh, Face check is a subscription based model, or you can use it with Entra Suite as a license, 25 cents per transaction when you go pay as you go. So you can manage it as a part of your use case, stitch it to access packages so that you can easily do such scenarios of adding verification to self-service resource request, be it a employee doing a self-service request,
Hmm.
or think of it like a B2B scenario. When you give a access package link to a B2B guest, how do you know he or she is the right guest coming from that organization?
Hmm.
And or you can also take this to a next level, like access package has this custom extension with logic apps as a model. When a B2B guest is presenting a verified ID with face check, which has elements like job title from their home organization, and you want to make sure your directory is rich, like who from that partner organization is trying to access this resource, is he the right person from the right job function?
Hmm.
So you can bring that job title as well, because that data was in the verifiable credential, and it can be populated in the B2B guest property. So these are very simple to configure use cases, no custom code. But what we see customers using it now is to bringing in verification with their line of business app or help desk app. I'm sure we all read about the the help desk attack that happened a couple of years ago, and it's been now like a lot of companies are impacted
Mm.
with password theft and all that, right? So how do you make sure the caller at the help desk is the right caller? You can bring in verifications in your digital channel through these models. Since it's API based, you can do ITSM ticketing tool integration as well. So somebody calls, your agent initiates a verification request with the ticket ID. The caller responds to that verification request. Since it's on an API channel, the verification with the face biometric confidence score comes as a response to your ticket, and then you can either do a manual action or escalate it to an automated action. So you can bring these easy use cases to life very easily. But if I have to summarize, look at themes around: how do you secure your onboarding,
Mhm.
how do you secure your access to apps, and how do you bring in verification to your account recovery flows. That's where I feel it's easy for you to use such patterns. So, and some options are available out of the box. You can configure them, or some for some of it you can use the APIs to connect it to things like your ticketing tool or uh, your training systems and so on.
Mhm. Okay, cool. So just for our listeners as well, in the comments there will be some links as well because we've been talking about the easy out of the gate stuff that you can do, integrations with access packages, face check, the setup, and so forth. But specifically for developers and me as a non-developer, I found those very useful. Are the code samples like the help desk application that you just talked about is ready to make, like deploy to Azure kind of solution, which works really well. And it's not meant to, obviously to use it in production, but I've learned a lot about that. So I think it's definitely something useful that I will share as part of this podcast because I think it made things easy. It's not an easy topic, to be fair,
Mhm.
and it just helps people getting started, which I think a lot of people can appreciate. So before wrapping up the entire episode here, I've got two more questions for you. Maybe
Sure.
a little bit sneaky questions, but is there anything that you can share about what's next for verified ID, what you're thinking of?
Yeah. So during my talk, I've been mentioning about using verification in account recovery patterns. And you also mentioned about our GitHub sample, which is available today. So you can stitch it to your help desk ITSM tools. But there has been an ask like, can we do something for native recovery flows in Entra ID? Like, how do you make sure if I've lost my phone, lost my managed device, I don't have my corporate credential, can I be securely given access to my corporate environment? Can I get a secure authentication flow going on? So that's one effort that we are trying to build right now in Entra ID. And the second effort is about how do we make your life easy with the government ID document verification. Um, we have public APIs, we have 11 vendors available. We're trying to see, can we do it simple and better? So there's a
Hmm.
second effort going on right now on that stream. And can we expand the list so that way, if you come to me and say, hey, I have a partner in Australia that I use, could you have an onboarding pattern for them? So we are trying to make that pattern simple and easy. So you bring that partner to life. You just not worry about the contracting details, but you can just build a simple maybe a set of click-based models and get that service going, because your objective was passport verification and you want to bring it to life easily. So we are trying to
Hmm.
make that simple and easy. So these are two efforts that are going on, looking at how do we support kind of a total loss scenario, and how
Hmm.
do we make identity verification integration simple with verified ID.
Okay, cool. And last question. What's your take? And this is a broader question, like the next
Mm.
3 to 5 years in the identity space, or maybe even in the decentralized identity space. Where do you think we're headed, and what will happen?
Yeah, yeah. This is my personal opinion. As I started at my talk, that I am very passionate about privacy and privacy preserving topics. I see that these user centric privacy preserving trends will gain more traction. There will be a need for interoperability because when you go to such patents which are based on decentralized identity and verifiable credential, you need to make sure these are portable and interoperable. So I see uh, this specific pattern gaining traction, and you can see there are some government initiatives going on. So it'll take time, but it'll come. And since you asked me what I see in 3 to 5 years, I see for sure some use cases getting powered by such patterns.
Hmm.
And I also see a very strong alignment with zero trust principle because these patterns can support uh, good and effective collaboration models. They can offer patterns like verifying explicitly. You can bring in a stronger verification when it comes to a digital interaction channel.
Hmm.
So I see these patterns evolve to support verification patterns as well for online and digital channels. And on the standard side, there is some active work going on. I also see that standards will evolve, ecosystem will grow, and identity will play a key role in enabling secure and privacy respecting innovation across industries.
I
There's one more
couldn't
thing I would
agree more.
say. Yeah, we are seeing trends with AI,
Hmm.
generative AI. So um, I would, as an identity practitioner in this industry for so many years, I would also mention that do keep a track of developments that are happening in the Gen AI space, because such innovation can also lead to deepfakes and enhanced phishing techniques. So do keep a trend on how Gen AI is evolving, navigate through this disruption, make sure you are ahead of the game.
Hmm.
Uh, and when it comes to zero trust, make sure in your apps you are looking at implementing the principles, verify explicitly. That way you can add controls. You could use services like face check, but there you could bring in your own patterns as well.
I couldn't have put it any better because that's exactly the reason why I chose decentralized identities or verifiable credentials as the first talk of the series of the podcast because it's about additional verification, explicit verification, which is a core fundamental element to zero trust, and it does definitely help increase the security posture from governance of identities to the authentication and authorization bits and pieces. So I entirely agree. But I also, I'm happy that you share the fact that the world is evolving and we have to be aware of the threats. Deepfakes. Sure, we have a reasonable assurance, like with
Mm.
Hello for Business back in the day, where the false positive rate or the false negative rate is limited, but it doesn't mean that it isn't impossible as technology matures, challenges and threats change, and we have to adapt as well. So I think we've got a couple of years to figure a lot of things out. That's for sure. So with that, Rohit, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time and having this wonderful discussion. I hope that our listeners enjoyed it as well, and I look forward to the responses and the reactions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure joining the conversation.
You're welcome. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Cheers.